Good morning, everybody. My cough is a little more pronounced today. And it looks like we might have a bunch of Heather Shoemakers joining us again today. We will figure this out one day, but for this event, it looks like this gets to be our fun tech thing that we're learning about. So fun to see so many of you back. Look at you on bright and early on a Friday. So good. We have people just popping into this waiting room. Yesterday was powerful. It was really, really powerful for us as a team. And we got a lot of messages from all of you talking about how the energy felt, things that were going on in your lives. We got a lot of fun posts in the Elevated Mother Collective. It has been so fun to see your marriage photos, your dating photos, your current photos, and have you guys talk about how grateful you are for this man that has chosen to be your partner. Just so beautiful. We have a lot of information today that is more skill-based. Yesterday, we really opened up kind of your awareness of your agency and your choice, and kind of your power there, different contexts and scenarios. If you miss day one, you'll want to go back and watch the recording sometime. Today we have Missy Reber will be our main speaker, and then we'll have some time at the end. We've got another visualization from the amazing Cherie, who loved that yesterday. She is so skilled, so beautiful. And then we have a little time at the end for some Q&A. So if you've had specific questions about any of the material that's presented, programs that we have, we'll have some time at the end to do that. And if you have ones that you want to make sure we cover, like in case there's not time, whatever, pop them in the chat. Say, this is a question for the Q&A, and Heather will be taking those down. I know you're all like, well, who's Heather? And just a reminder, my team is Missy Reber, Cherie Carlisle, and Heather Shoemaker. And a lot of you got your link from Heather Shoemaker, and so your name is showing up as her. But she is the one in the blue sweater. I don't know where she is on your screen. She's waving. She's the one that will take your questions. She is our amazing kind of back-end extraordinaire. She did the workbook. She's managing all the emails. She's managing like all the things. And we're so grateful for her. So, so grateful. And we've become aware that in this coaching industry, sometimes people do what's called coaching. So they'll come on other people's events, and then they go and message them and bring them into their own business, or say that they're coaching with us and they're not. So just be aware that if it's not Missy or Cherie or Heather or myself messaging you, it's not us. It's not our company. And so everyone here has been assigned an elevation specialist. If you have questions, stuff you want to catch up on, you could catch up on. Maybe you want to share what's going on in your life, whatever. We're happy to talk about that. Stuff you need clarification on, then you can message that person. All right. Missy Reber is going to teach us today. She has done extensive study around relationship, marriage, understanding the differences between the male and the female, the way the brain thinks, different things like this that are so, so valuable. She's added such value to our clients in our programs with the knowledge that she has. And so I'm going to go ahead and let her teach her most amazing thing that she's got for us today. Look, she's breathing in, she's ready. So get your notes out. She's going to just really give us a lot of powerful, beautiful information.
All right. Hi, guys. I'm so excited to be here, and we get on and have prayer before we start these things. And I was telling them that every time I teach a class on marriage, God wakes me up at 4 o'clock in the morning and is like, I got more to say. So while I had this class all written out of all the things I think I know, right? I just want you to know that the reason we're doing this event and we felt so impressed is because I'm going to try not to get super emotional today. I really believe that marriage matters, not just to us and to our children and to our children's children, but to God and to the world. And if there's one thing that God can shift in the world and help us understand that changes the world around us, it's our marriages. It stabilizes society, it stabilizes our kids. And if we get really deep inside ourselves, it is the deepest desire of our hearts as married women to have connected, beautiful marriages. And so I'm not on here today spouting all of this. Like Robyn says, I've done a lot of work in this area of my life, not because my marriage was particularly easy or because this is an area where I struggled. Okay, so I don't know if you've seen the post floating around that says your calling will crush you. My marriage has not been the easiest walk in my life, and I feel like one of the tragedies of the current world we live in is we lack the connection space to really deeply share with each other as women. Right? In the Bible, they used to have the red tent, right? All the women would go into the red tent at that time of the month when they were like, nobody talked to me. And they would sit together and they would bleed, literally, and they would share their hearts and share their stories and pass on these deep teachings and these deep women centric ideas to their daughters and to each other. And while, yes, we probably all go to our different church communities and we're out, we have our own sets of friends, when it comes to marriage, because it's so tender to our hearts, I don't know about you, but how easy is it to go to church and be like, everyone's like, hey, how are you? Be like, yeah, my marriage really sucks this week and I don't know what to do about it. Like, we don't do that. There's not a lot of space and a lot of areas where you can be so vulnerable to take the most precious thing in your life that matters the most and just like lay it out there for people to pick apart, right? So I'm not here because I've had a perfect marriage. I'm not, one of my favorite movies growing up was Runaway Bride. Who remembers Runaway Bride? And at the end, right after she's like refused to get married 3 times, she stands at the altar. And what does she say? She says, I'm not standing here because we're not both going to have moments where either one of us wants to leave. I'm standing here because I know that if I don't do this, I will regret it for the rest of my life. So if you find yourself in this space, watching this call on a replay, wherever your marriage is, whether it's really good and you just want it to be better, or whether you're like, yep, I'm there, I'm the runaway bride, I am ready to be done, right? I just want you to know that God woke me up this morning and was like, this matters. It matters. And there's healing here that can happen. And yesterday, Robyn talked about her life or death experience with her baby. And I think there are times in our lives and in our marriages that are so fiery and hard that it's like the crucible the Bible talks about, where you're like, I don't know if we're making it through this fire. But I will testify to you that those fiery, hard times of my marriage are what have made my marriage great now. And what have purified my own heart, because let's be honest, us women are like, no, we're the moms. Like, we know how to run this show. Okay. Like, nothing's wrong with me. It's all about my husband and what he's doing wrong. Right. But what Robyn wanted to bring to you yesterday is this feeling that you have so much power in your relationship. One of my favorite authors, Byron Katie, who wrote the book Loving What Is, says it only takes one person to end a war, and that person is you. And so often it's our pride, right? And nobody wants to sign up and say, yep, I'm afraid, God, and I have pride. And right? It's in our marriages, it's so easy to not apply the scripture about the mote in the beam, right? We want to pick apart our husband and say that it's his fault. And maybe it is. Maybe your husband has done things to hurt you. Guess what? In all marriages, you will hurt each other. The point of being married is not to have it look pretty. The point of being married is to purify your hearts, to let the hard things burn out what's left in you that is keeping you from loving like God. And your husband will be the person, your husband and your children will be the person that are going to poke those spots in you that hurt the most. That was God's plan. We come into marriage with this idea, right? We read the scripture about becoming one flesh, right? And we literally let ourselves be absorbed in identity into our marriages, right? And a lot of us in Christian culture get married really young. And I'm not going to say that's bad, but there is trepidation there, because what happens a lot of times is all of a sudden we're in love and everything's great, right? But when you marry your husband, you're bringing your trauma, your baggage, his trauma, his baggage, and all of a sudden you get into marriage and you're like, and now we're one. And you look at your husband and you go, okay, now you're going to make my baggage fine. You're going to make me feel good about myself. You're going to make my sexuality good. You're going to make everything better about me. And we don't even perceive that that's what we're doing, right? We go into marriage with so many expectations and obligations. And now we've got our husband on the hook. So now we're coming at him and you're like, I feel uncomfortable. I don't like that man over there who does man things, like leaves his whiskers on the bathroom every single day. I don't like it. I'm uncomfortable. And so we get to point at him and say, I'm unhappy, right? So becoming one in marriage, one flesh, is not about erasing yourself into marriage. It's not, and there's the scripture about women being submissive. We're going to get to that a little later on. But there's these ideas around marriage that marriage is supposed to make us good, right? No, you are good by yourself. And when two people who God created come together, the marriage becomes one whole. If you've ever seen, right, Chinese medicine, it's yin and yang. We're going to talk a lot about this balance of male and female energy today and how that actually heals your marriage. But the problem is we come into marriage and all of a sudden we become codependent. We're so interwoven with our husbands that anytime he does something that we don't love, we judge ourselves, and vice versa. So maybe that's fine in the beginning, but I've been married 21 years, and I'll tell you, there's been enough times in my marriage where I'm like, this is not working. Like, it's pointing fingers. And here's the thing, is like, it's all good and fine when you're newlyweds. And I mean, not even my newlywed experience was not bumpy. All right. So the problem is your husband cannot ever make you good. That's your job. And so in Matthew, one of my favorite scriptures, right? It says, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father, which is in heaven, right? Same set of verses that talks about, well, you don't light a candle and put it under a bushel, right? The city that's set on a hill is not supposed to be hid. Well, guys, you're the candle. And you go into marriage and you let your marriage bury you. God never intended for your light to go out. God never intended for you to get so immersed in motherhood and marriage that all of a sudden you're like, who am I? Like, I literally got to a point where I'm like, I don't even know what kind of food I like anymore. I'm just eating my kids' crust off their sandwiches, and I'm just like managing. So what I want to impress on you most is that you are the one. God created you to be you. You can never be recreated. You will never exist ever again. Like, you are so precious to God, So precious. So I want you, like, I'm going to go back to Cherie's visualization. And if you were not in day one, I want you to go back to it because it was so beautiful that she walked us all the way back to the little girl we were, wearing the veil, picking the flowers. This wild and free and bright, shiny little girl who still feels like that, who shows up as that person when they play with their kids. I show up like sometimes like the tired, grumpy ogre, right? Like, but the problem is that we sometimes think that sacrificing ourselves so much, giving everything that we want, all of our desires to our kids and our husband is actually doing a service to them. And what we're actually doing is burying the light that God created. We have got to show back up in our families as that girl. She's still in there. She's still in there. And that is who God created. So, like, I want you guys to, I would love it if you would post this in the group. Go back to a picture of yourself, even if you can't find the actual picture, like the quintessential person. Like, when you picture yourself as a wild and free little girl, what do you picture? I picture myself in a watermelon swimsuit, running on the beach, wild sea foam in my hair, sand in my all over my face, making drip castles. Like, that's who I picture. And like, that's who we need to bring back into your marriage and into motherhood. And that's who's got to show back up. And it is not selfish to show up as that girl again. It is not selfish to take care of yourself and find that girl again. I would argue that it's actually what God wants most for you. When your husband fell in love with you, you were that. You were that. So we get 10 years into marriage and we're like, why is everything so hard and weird? It's because we erased ourselves. And God never asked us to do that. So as we go through this material, I might make you a teensy bit uncomfortable. Okay, but I want you to like sit in it because that's God saying you can grow here. You can look at the beam in your own eye. You can take responsibility for agency, and you have so much power in your marriages. So we're starting as that little girl and we're going to move forward through, guys, I have like 15 pages of notes. So I'm like, we're going by the spirit here, but I'm going to be like, all right, let's make sure I'm getting to everything. Okay. So when we sacrifice so much and become so codependent, this is where resentment shows up, frustration, disconnection, the wall goes up. This is where you're like, ugh. Like, I would say it 100 times over. My marriage has never been bad. It's never been bad. Like, yeah, we've had hard times. We've hurt each other, whatever, but it's never been bad. But was it magical? And when I say magical, connected, deep, spiritual, all the things that you put that veil on your head as a little girl and you dreamed of, is it that? And sometimes the world tells us, well, that's not realistic. And I want you to know that God wants you to love your marriage. There's this crap out there that's like, marriage has to be so hard. It's so hard. Is it hard or is we making it hard? I know I'm going to say some things that you're going to be like, ooh, it's okay. And I want you to know when I came into the Elevated Mother over a year ago, I was so stuck. That was the only word I brought to Robyn. I was like, I don't know, I'm so stuck. Like, I was so frustrated. My marriage wasn't bad. Like, yeah, maybe bad things had happened. We'd had hard times, but it wasn't horrible. Like, my kids were healthy. I was homeschooling. That's what I wanted to do. I mean, like, but I just had this energy inside me. I was so anxious. I was so frustrated. I was like, I'm stuck here. I don't even know how to find my way. Like, what is happening? So this is where we get to let Jesus step in and heal our hearts and take responsibility for ourselves. They tell you the most intimate relationship you're ever going to have is with your spouse. And I'm going to like throw that belief out the window. The most intimate relationship you need to have in this life is with yourself. Because this is the problem. We come in young and new to marriage, and we never really take responsibility for ourselves. We just give it over to our marriage and say, make it good. This is you, guys. This is you. You get to do this work on yourself. The most important thing, the most unselfish thing you can ever do for your marriage, for your children, for your grandchildren, is to take 100% responsibility for yourself, for your thoughts, for your actions, for your baggage, for your feelings, for yourself. And that's really hard to do in marriage when your husband hurts you. Because guess what? We get all up in our justification and we're like, wow, he did X, Y, and Z. He hurt my feelings. And you want to know the funny story? I'm going to get to this later because I'm going to break down the steps that I took. Guess who that happened to last night? My husband hurt my feelings. And I was mad. And I told him too. And then I caught myself and I was like, oh, I see you, God. Like, I see you. Oh, Missy, guess who's teaching tomorrow? You are. Okay, this is not something you learn and you're like, yep, I'm so good at this. No, marriage is a journey. It's gonna keep showing up, y'all. Okay, so like you get to take responsibility for your magical, amazing marriage. Who's ready? Me. Okay, and guess what? I'm gonna testify to you that this works because I've done it. I've done it and I am doing it every single day. And my marriage is just getting better. In fact, I was joking with Robyn the other day. I'm like, dude, I always get what I want. I was like, what is happening? Like, in fact, so I've been sick and my husband and I, we send songs back and forth. Like some people send memes, jokes, whatever. We send songs back and forth. So my husband sent me the Tina Turner. We like 80s music. All right. That's who we are. He sent me the Tina Turner song, Simply the Best, which like, simply the best. It's like the best song. Okay. So he sent it to me the other day and I like didn't reply because I was like with my kids and they were being psychotic after school. And he was like, you didn't reply to my song. And I had to like take my step back. I'm like, oh my gosh, like he's seeking my validation. Like, and I was like, how cute is that? And it's like, that didn't always exist in my marriage. And I kind of blew him off the other day when he did that. And then this morning, as I'm getting ready for this call, guess what song came to my head? I'm in my kitchen and I'm like, simply like singing the song, right? So your marriage can feel fun and easy and connected, but you have to receive it. Okay. I'm going to help you today. We're going to go through 4 steps. Okay. So get your notes out. We're going to go through 4 steps. We're going to rapidly go through this stuff. But before we do that, we're going to go to the page in your workbook. It says, what do women want? Men brain, female brain. You guys got that page? If you don't have your notes out, just make a list. What do women want? What do men want? In the chat, you can add to this list for each other. Okay. But I'm just, for the sake of time. Yep. I see. Let's see. Heather. Oh, you're not Heather. Everyone's Heather today. I was like, Heather has her work back out. It's not Heather. That's funny. Okay. So I'm going to make a list. And if this resonates with you, like put a high five or something in the chat. Or if there's something else that you're going to add to your list that you think everyone should add, go ahead and put it in the chat. This is an interactive experience. Okay, guys, like get in the chat. Let's talk about what do women want? Like, what do we want? And I'm not going to say like, well, I want the boat and I want the like perfectly clean house. Okay. Like, sure. We want all those things. I want to be like, you know, in my high school body, all those things. Okay. Megan says connection. Okay. So we want to feel, we're going to go with our feelings because we love our feelings, right? And your feelings are the way. Okay. Your feelings are how you get to the bottom of what you need to change. It's always about the feelings. And guess what? We get to talk about our husband's feelings today. Yes, they have feelings. Okay. So, what do women want to feel? Megan hit the nail on the head. She said connected. We want to feel desired. Who wants to feel desired by their husband? Who wants their husband chasing them around the house, right? Yeah, we all want that. Okay. Who wants to feel like truly cared for, thought about? Who wants to feel safe, secure? This was my favorite one. Who wants to feel adored? Like your husband, like, right? That you're simply the best. Like, who doesn't want that from their husband? I'm like, I just want you to tell me I'm amazing and like I'm the only person you ever love. And like, right? Who wants to feel adored? That's like, isn't that just such a feeling word? I'm like, just sit in the energy of that for a minute. We all want that. Okay. And then the last one, this actually goes on both lists. We want to feel free to be our authentic selves. And going along with that, we want to feel seen, right? We want to feel seen and we want to feel free. Oh, heard. Shanna said heard. Yep. We want to feel heard. And part of that is right. We want to be really able to, in our marriages, to be super authentic. My husband and I have been like working through a lot of things in the last year. And he said to me once in midst of deep conversation, he said, you know what? I don't think you have ever really let me see you. And I was like, oh, and he was right. He was 100% right. Because we come into marriage, right? And we think we're so authentic coming out of the dating world. And then we hit like finances and pregnancy and all the awkward and hard things we go through in marriage. And what do? We put on a mask or we put up a wall. And all of a sudden, this person that we want so deeply to desire us, to see us, to hear us, to adore us, we don't even let them. We put our wall up and we put our masks on and we say we're fine. Well, guess what? You're never going to get the marriage feeling that you want when you're wearing a mask. And one thing that Robyn pointed out to me so lovingly that was hard to hear when I first came into her space was she like right in my face, Missy, you're hiding everywhere. You're wearing masks everywhere. And I'm like, oh, and it was hard to look in the face and realize that even in my most intimate relationship, I was not letting myself be fully seen and authentic. Ouch. And this is the work. This is the work we get to do, guys. This is how you create your magical marriages. So just take a breath. You're going to live. We're going to dive into the work. Okay, now let's talk about the husband's brain. We love to joke about the man brain, right? We just love it because it's like Mars. It really is like men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We're like, why? Why do they do that? If you have teenage boys, this gets like really obvious because it's like the non-refined man, anyway. But men want things too. And this is really important to understand. And this is the way, right? I said feelings are the way. Your husband's feelings are the way. And when you can understand yours and you can understand his, this is how you create your best marriage. Okay, what do men want? Throw out your ideas. The first thing, yep, Heather said it, the real Heather. The first thing that men want is respect. Okay. And if you have little boys that grow into teenage boys, you'll see this really quick. It's really interesting. The way their linear brains work, they want to be respected. They want their agency. And the reason they have that is because God built them to protect and to provide, right? They need that structure to be the man. Guys, you married a man, okay? We need to let them be the man. And we're going to get to that. But man's brains are hardwired to need respect. And that respect actually enables them to go out into the world and to protect and to provide. So while that might feel frustrating, right? It's what they need. It's what they need. We're going to talk about this in depth in a minute. Okay, the other thing men need to feel is successful. They need to, well, I mean, we all like to feel successful, but men especially, right? They're on their one path brain and they like to feel like they are going the right way. They want to feel successful. They want to feel strong. They want to feel confident. They want to feel like they can protect and provide, right? They need this testosterone that like makes them, right? Aggressive isn't the right word, but like they have this innate, literally hormonal ability to linearly take care of us, to protect, provide, and like the Bible says, preside. So when it says being submissive to your husband, in my opinion, it's recognizing his true nature and yours. It's not about not having an opinion, and it's not about doing everything he says. It's not about that. It's about honoring each other's true natures. And here's something that I have come to believe is you cannot fake energy. You can't fake it. You can't take it from a man. It's hardwired in his chemistry. So we are doing our marriages a disservice when we're fighting against his true nature. So like I talked about in the beginning, you got to go back to your true nature. Your wild, free, creative, flowing, female self, and you got to let him be in his. The problem is our world is like raised us, right? Women can do everything, and we can. We can, but do we want to? Let's all play the Miley Cyrus song about buying ourselves flowers. Do we really want to do that? I don't. I want to feel adored. I want to be the princess in the castle. Come and kiss me and tuck me into bed. It's okay to want to be a woman and to be feminine. And that doesn't mean if you're like feminine, it's all about like pink and flowers and that. It's not that. But your hormones, your energy, your divine nature is feminine. And you married a man. So guess what? His energy, his hormones are masculine. So the problem is the world has actually taught us to fight each other. And we don't even see it. So now we're going to take our feelings and we're going to dive into the 4 skills that you need. Okay. So I'm going to list them out for you, and then we're going to like dive into each one. Okay. So you can see here that this is about polarity, right? It's about male energy, female energy. And we got to come back to acceptance of this polarity of yin and yang. Okay. It doesn't mean that you don't get input on the finances. That does not what this means. It means sinking into your true nature and allowing that circle to flow, right? Because like if you're half of the circle and you're like a wheel and you're like pushing on your husband's energy all the time, that wheel ain't going nowhere. It's just going to cause friction. So if you feel like there's friction all the time, or when you fight, there's friction, well, let's take that friction and say, how can I take that away by sinking into my true nature? Okay. So here are the 4 skills. Ready? 1, reclaiming your agency in your marriage. That's number 1, agency. 2, getting clear on who you are. Identity. So agency, identity. 3, getting clear on what you want, desire. And 4, reestablishing the balance of energy. Okay, so that's your male, female energy, your natures. Okay, so we talked about agency in the first day, right? And I made a post last week, and it's the one thing that I started saying to my husband when we were going through a hard time. Okay. And hard times, I'm going to point this out again, really hard times in your marriage are a blessing. And I'm going to say that because I can speak from the other side of some pretty hard times. And it's because it's going to, if you will allow it, it's going to show you where your holes are in your marriage. And it also gives you a chance for what Robyn talked about of renewal, right? We get a chance to, like every day is new, the sun rises and sets. When those hard days come, we get to choose again. We chose on our wedding day, but what we need to lean into is that every single day with your spouse is a choice. So I started to, when my husband and I were going through a hard time, we could have both just said, see ya, peace out. This is too hard. Too hard. But what I realized is that both of us kept choosing in. And so I started to see my husband with new eyes. And instead of blaming and being hurt, even though I had those feelings to work through, I started to look at him every single day and say, thanks for being here. And that sounds simple, but your husband does not have to be here. He doesn't. And neither do you. I want you to just like hold that for a minute and imagine. Yeah, there are times where you're like, I'm over it. Okay. We're the runaway bride. We're like, peace out. This is my day. This is my day where I'm like, I want out, right? You're not alone. I guarantee you there has been a point in almost probably every single marriage that ever walked the face of the earth that you're like, I'm done with you. Okay. Like too hard. So if you are here today, you're choosing that. You're choosing to be here today as a married person. And sometimes all you have in a hard time is say, okay, I'm choosing to be here today. If that's all I can do, I'm choosing today. And I want you to look at your spouse when he comes home today. And I want you to say that, hey, thanks for being here. And that might catch him off guard, but I want you to feel all the way down into that comment and really think about it. How would you feel if today was the day that he chose out? You always have that choice. And there's this, yes, marriage is a contract, okay? But we always have a choice. God will never take our agency. And so we get these obligations and expectations in marriage, and we forget that our husband and ourselves have a choice. So I just want you to sit in that. And I also want you to decide, am I choosing in today? And if today is all you can do, you don't want to choose in tomorrow because you're still mad. We can work through that. But you're choosing today. That matters. It matters. And that's how you get through the fire. Okay. That's how we build. We choose today and we look at ourselves. Okay. So you have to give yourself your agency back and you got to claim it. You always have a choice whether or not to stay in your marriage. You always have a choice. And you have to give your husband his agency back. And this seems counterintuitive, right? It seems counterintuitive. You're like, you mean I'm releasing him to just like go? Yeah. What if you stop taking ownership of your husband's behavior? And this is in my favorite marriage book. It's called The Empowered Wife. Literally like my Bible for marriage. She talks about it, your paper, his paper. And the problem with getting married is now we're like, oh, we're writing this beautiful love story and we're all on the same paper. Like how many times have people said, well, I just want my husband to be on the same page as me. And I'm going to say, get off his page. Get off. Get back onto your own page. Because here's the truth that is uncomfortable. And I'm going to speak it. Ready? You actually can never control anyone else but yourself. The end. Your toddler? Nope, can't control your toddler. Can't control your husband. Whatever he's doing, you cannot actually control it. You might want to try by nagging, and we're going to get to that in about 2 minutes. You cannot control your husband. And when we try to control, let's come back to the marriage wheel. All we're doing is pulling back on the wheel. So let Jesus have the wheel. Should we sing the song? Okay, Jesus, take the wheel. Your husband, his choices, how he shows up is Jesus's job. Give it back to him. Give it back to God. This is where we're going to get to the identity piece in a minute, where you get to ask yourself, am I a woman of faith? Do I believe Jesus? Do I believe my husband is redeemed? Do I believe that no matter what he does, Christ has already suffered for it? He's done. The best version of your husband, Christ already paid for that. So why are we all up in their paper? But this is hard. I'm not going to say this is an easy skill, because it's not. I got all up in my husband's paper yesterday, guys. Okay. And I was like, oh, I see what I did there. I got all up in your stuff. And so we're going to get to this in a minute, but like, I want you to really ask yourself, how am I in my husband's business? How am I not showing faith that Jesus has a handle on my husband? He will never show up for his faith like you. He will never show up like a parent as you. He will never do anything like you. And just like we talked in the beginning about the little girl, there's a little boy in him too that God created that's perfect, that has a bright, shiny light that God wants to be let out. And the problem is when it comes out, sometimes in marriage, we're like, yeah, I don't love that. He's still learning to not yell at the kids, and I don't love that. But is trying to criticize and control him actually helping? It's not. It's being all up in his paper. So I know it's uncomfortable and it seems counterintuitive. But for now, we're going to learn my favorite skill, which is called duct tape. Right? When you feel like you're going to get up in your husband's stuff, I want you to put an imaginary piece of duct tape over your mouth. You can send me a Facebook message and be like, okay, I'm duct taping myself. I will support you. Okay. Because here's what it allows us to do. This is what Robyn talked about yesterday. It's practicing the pause. I need a little bit more force. Like, I'm like, please God, duct tape my mouth. Okay. It's not easy for me. So, okay. So we're practicing getting off our husband's paper. And when we release our husband to his own agency, his own choices, his own feelings, we're taking the pressure off the wheel, and God can move the wheel forward. It's not our job to change our husbands. That's God's job. Your job is to get on your own paper, take radical 100% responsibility for your baggage, your emotions, your feelings, how you show up. Okay? I know this is hard, guys. It is not. It's easier said than done. I told you I was just throwing information at you today. So I realized that this is work, and that's why we created what we created, so that you have a space to do this work, because it's a lifetime. You guys, I had to do it last night. So, okay, this is a lifetime of work. Okay. So that's gonna lead us. Let me see. Oh, okay. So this is why you need to do this. Write this quote down. Ready? You can't be his mother and his lover. The energies cannot coexist. And guys, when our kids are little and when we're managing a household, we're very micromanagey, okay? And we control because we have to, or our kids will die, okay? Like, we make meals and we chase after kids. We make sure they don't jump off bunk beds. Okay, but that's our mother energy. Those are our motherhood instincts. But often, who talks to their husband in their mom voice? We don't do it on purpose. But how many times has your husband ever said to you, like, don't talk to me like the kids? I'm not a kid. I'm like, oh. The energy is real, guys. You cannot be his mother and his lover at the same time. When you were dating, you were not controlling him, right? You showed up as that fun, wild, and free spirit. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, put your dish in the sink, please. So I just want you to become aware of when that happens for you. Oh, okay. So Shayna, there's so much he wasn't taught. Okay, bring that to the Q&A. What do you do when your husband doesn't put his dish in the sink and you literally want to wring his neck because he's setting a bad example for your children? Okay, let's answer that in the Q&A. Like you can throw your real questions at me. Okay, so, but I just want you to remember that. Okay, so I'm going to read this list, and I taught a whole class on resentment and control in our free group. So after this is over, y'all can go watch those classes if you want to sit in this some more. Sneaky ways control shows up to trigger disrespect in your husband's brain. You ready for this? Talking to him in your mom voice. Criticizing. Helpful suggestions like, it's your mom's birthday. Don't you think you should call your mom? Or, hey, honey, are those pants clean? Do you think you should wear that shirt like to our kids' event? On his paper. All on his paper. Okay? Micromanaging. Doing things you don't want to do and then being resentful. Right? Like, yep. No, honey, I'm fine. I don't need help with the kids this weekend. I'll just do it all myself. And then you're pissed. All right. Yeah, that's a problem. That's disrespectful. Okay. Correcting him, speaking for him. How many times do we like answer for our husbands? He's a big boy. Even if you know the answer, you don't have to say it. Okay. Okay. Doing things he didn't ask you to do. Being overly helpful, like doing his laundry, right? Like I would do my husband's laundry when we were first married, and then he'd be like, don't do my laundry. And I'd be like, what? I was being helpful. He's like, I didn't ask you to. Oh, okay. I have never done my husband's laundry again, ever, unless he asks me to. But we think we're being helpful. And sometimes we're overly helpful and we're just draining our energy. And our husbands are like, dude, I'm a big boy. I can do that myself. Right? Okay. Walking on eggshells and not speaking up for what we want. We're going to get into that later. Undoing things he did and doing it your way. Telling him how you would do it. And giving him disapproving looks, especially while parenting. Okay. I can see by your faces that y'all resonate with those. So feel free to add to the list in the chat. Okay. And that might feel like a little bit of a shock. Like when I first like really sat with that list, I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, I do all of those. And I didn't even believe it. But the problem is you're triggering that primal need for respect in your husband, and it is not helping you get the magical loving marriage that you want. Okay. So that's just bringing that to your awareness. Okay. Your husband's happiness is not your job. Managing his emotions, not your job. Managing his spiritual progression, also not your job. Okay. So we've given him back his agency. We're off of his paper. Now we're going to come to 2. And that's, who are you? I brought this up a little earlier, and your faith. Okay. Like we're all here because we are women of faith. So when you're getting in the nitty gritty of your marriage, we're not doing these things to change him. I will testify that when I first started to practice this, I was doing it to change my husband. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do these things. I'm going to change his behavior. He's going to get whipped into shape. That was my intention. 100%. I was going to change my husband. And you know what God taught me? It ain't your job. It ain't your job. Get off of his paper. And so I realized that ultimately I had to show up out of my own personal integrity and belief. So this piece, who are you, is I am a woman of faith, which means if I believe in Jesus Christ, I believe that Jesus has already got my husband's weaknesses all taken care of. So I can get off my husband's back about it. I can deal with my own feelings about the things I don't love that he does. And I can trust that when I'm in my integrity and in my faith in Jesus Christ, Jesus will take care of him. It doesn't mean there aren't things that we can't do to help our husbands. But do you see my point here? Is that when we really ask ourselves, am I a woman of faith and forgiveness? Constantly criticizing our husband is actually out of integrity with ourselves. It's out of alignment with our true belief system. So you changing your behavior in your marriage to change your spouse is out of integrity. Because do you want to be a woman who shows up kind, who shows up respectful, no matter the circumstance? So when your husband does something you don't love and you feel like you're justified in your disrespect and your anger, who do you want to be? Kind, patient, long-suffering, forgiving, believing in Jesus Christ, or mad? Or, right? And I will raise my hand. I say this all the time. Nobody wants to talk about all the things they did wrong in marriage. I volunteer as tribute. And I'm here telling you I've done every single thing, all of it. But claiming your identity also means that you know in your core that you're done. Christ already suffered for everything you did wrong in your marriage. Every time you were mean, every time you yelled at your kids, every time. It's already done. It's finished. Pick it up. Pick it up. So when I say get clear on who you are, you're a daughter of God. You're a bright, shiny light. No one can be you ever again. So you get to live in that energy. And so when you're justifiably mad at your spouse because he hurt you or he did something you don't agree with, you can still stand in your integrity and say, I am a woman of faith who believes in Jesus Christ. I don't need to criticize, control, compel my husband. I can show up in full love and confidence, in forgiveness, in kindness, in compassion, in long suffering, because not to change him, we're not changing him. We're changing us. We're changing ourselves. And this is how it works. Jesus changed the whole world by doing what? By being himself. He compelled no one. If Jesus didn't compel people to repent and to believe in him, you do not have to compel your husband. That's his paper, and that's Jesus's job. Trust him. Do you trust Jesus Christ? Guys, I don't come to you today because this was easy for me. Okay, like my word for the year is forgive. And gosh dang it, I thought I was a pretty darn forgiving person. And when I prayed about what word I needed this year, it was that. And I said, dear God, do not give me that word. But I decided that it wasn't about anyone else, that it was about me. And whether or not I was willing to let God refine my heart, to burn it to the ground. Like Robyn said, let yourself die. Let it all die, all of it. And choose what you're going to pick back up. But when you get back up, decide who you are. And when your identity and your integrity in that identity drives your life, everything around you will shift. When Jesus Christ showed up in his true identity, knowing who he was, no matter when they nailed him to the cross, he said, Jesus, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Who can do that? Jesus can, because he was so clear about who he was. And this takes practice. This is a lifetime of work. You're not going to walk away from this call today and be like, yep, I know who I am. I'm never yelling at my husband again. Okay. I've been working so hard on this. And I got so frustrated and my feelings hurt with my husband last night before I taught this class. Jesus is like, oh yeah, you think you're so good, Missy? Let me show you. Okay. So I ain't preaching like I'm perfect over here. This is a lifetime of work, but I will tell you that nothing has made my marriage better than this. Nothing. This work on yourself is the best thing you will ever do for yourself, your children, and your marriage, and the world. So let's do the work. Okay. Next. Okay. Getting clear on what you want. Who wants things? Okay. As moms, a lot of times as women, we have set aside everything we want and we call it holy and we make ourselves martyrs for motherhood and for marriage. We're like, I'm just going to sacrifice everything I want. And then we're resentful and we're angry and we're frustrated. And I'm going to point out to something to you that is going to change your marriage and you're going to love it. And we talked about respect. The second thing men want is to feel successful. Oh, they love feeling successful. It is their favorite thing, okay? They love it. They lap it up. So men want to be your hero. They have this hero gene, okay? God gave it to them. It might feel dormant in your husband right now. So if you're like, oh yeah, Missy, my husband ain't showing up as that. I'm going to help you here. And the way to turn that back on in your husband and to give him what he wants, right? To feel successful is by flipping the switch of his hero gene. And you do that by, guess what? Wanting things, desires. Yep, you get to want things. It's awesome. And just like I said earlier, I'm like, I get everything I want these days. It's because I turned my receiver back on. Who likes to help other people more than they like other people helping them? By show of hands. Who likes to take the sick person a meal rather than having it brought to you? Show of hands. All of us. Our receivers are dormant. Okay? But I want to tell you that God created you to be a receiver and your husband to be the giver. This is the masculine feminine energy. But the world has told us overfunction, control, compel, overdo, and don't want anything. It's time to break the mold. In the scriptures, this is one of Robyn's favorites. It says, be in the world, but not of the world. We don't have to pick that up anymore, guys. We don't have to pick that up. We get to turn our receiver on. So this is one of my favorite exercises to do with women in our program. It literally, Cherie's going to print this on a t-shirt for me. So write this down, everybody. Ask yourself this question every single day. What do you want? What do you want? So yesterday, I was sick. I've been sick the last couple of days. And I'm like, what do you want, Missy? And I was like, I want my husband to go back to Costco and buy all the crap that I forgot because I have flu brain. So guess what I did? My husband, who always shows up and is like, what can I do for you today? And I, in the past, was like, oh, nothing. I'm good. I'm good. I got it. I can do everything. I'm superhuman. I cried and I was like, I forgot the rice. And like, whoa. And he's like, I'll go get the rice. And I was like, of course you will, because hero gene turned it back on. Because I told him I forgot the rice. Like, that's so silly. And guess who went and got the rice and picked up dinner? Because I was like, I don't want anything to eat. Nothing sounds good. I just want to cry and be sick. My husband did for me. But it's because I learned to stop over functioning. I learned that my desires are actually the North Star of my marriage. Your husband wants to please you. He wants to take care of you. It is literally ingrained in his DNA. It might be dormant because we've let it be. Because we've been taught that we can do everything. And then this is why we are in burnout. This is why we hate motherhood and we're drowning in, we don't hate motherhood, but you get my point, right? Like this is why we're burnt out, we're exhausted, we don't want to have sex, all the things. Because we've completely relinquished our desires and made ourselves holy martyrs. So your desires are the North Star of your relationship. Okay. So you get to make a desires list. And as uncomfortable as this is for you, I want you to post this in the group too. I want you to ask your husband for something. Next time you go to Home Depot with your husband on your very romantic date and you see that hat, that pretty pink gardening hat, and you're like, yeah, I don't need that. Nope. Don't need to spend my money on that. But you want it because you love it. And would it make you ridiculously happy? Do you like imagine yourself running around in your garden in your sundress with your pretty pink hat like that little girl? Think of things that make you feel like that. And then you say to your husband, be like, oh my gosh, I love that hat. And see what happens. Start to experiment with this. Your husband is not a mind reader. That is not in their DNA, okay? It is not. And you have to drop the story that your husband doesn't help you, that he doesn't want to support you. Same goes for your kids. Chances are, if you are in burnout, exhausted, and overwhelmed, you are not honest with your desires. You are hiding. You're walking on eggshells. You're putting a mask on and saying, oh, nope, I'm Superwoman. I literally, for half of my marriage, Wonder Woman was my person. I love Wonder Woman. She can do everything. She saved the world. And now I'm like, yeah, I don't so much resonate with that anymore because I don't really want to fly away and fix everything for everyone. That sounds exhausting. I was like, I'd like to sit on a beach. Thanks. And read a book. Okay. Your desires are the North Star of your marriage. And this is how you get to feel adored, taken care of, safe. This is where you get to ask yourself, why am I so uncomfortable asking for help? Where am I hiding in my marriage? Where am I not letting him see me? We went on a little mini family vacation, and my oldest daughter is at college, and I had some deep conversations with my daughter while we were gone, and I held myself together really well, right? I was so proud of myself. It's like, I owned my own feelings. I didn't project onto my daughter. Oh, it did such a good job. And then I came home and I fell apart. I was sick, who knows? And I was like, I found myself, I was like, my husband came in and I was bawling, processing my feelings, right? Letting those feelings out. And he's like, are you okay? He's like, what's happening? I'm like, I don't know what's happening. Ugly, ugly tears. I'm like, I just need to process my feelings. And so you know what I said? I was like, I'm going to go out to the office, which we have an office out over our barn, and cry. And he was like, why would you do that? And I was like, because I need to process my feelings. I had my journal. And here I thought I was doing a good job, right? I was taking responsibility for my feelings and not you know what he did? He was like, just come lay next to me on the couch. And he just held me while I was a complete disaster. And I never would have done that before. And he wouldn't have ever done that before either. But because I have leaned into this so much and I have let my wall down and let him see me in my mess, he shows up for me now. And yes, it took a while. It's like if you're dancing with your husband and you're doing this dance, and all of a sudden you're like, now I'm doing the tango, and he's still over here doing the Macarena. It's going to take him a hot second to figure out that we're doing a different dance. And that messy middle is uncomfortable. Okay. These are skills, guys. It takes work. It takes shifting your brain and what you've always done in your marriage. It takes next time your husband does something that hurts your feelings and you feel your fight come on and you get your mama bear out and you attack him. You're like, whoa, it takes a minute for you to be like, oh, I ain't doing that dance anymore. I'm over it. I'm going to do the cha-cha right out of this argument. Okay. And it's not pretty work, guys. It's not seamless. It's not pretty. It's not overnight, but the work works. It works. And then we're going to throw in the magic ingredient of Jesus. All right. And it heals. When you come back to your true natures and you let your husband see you, it heals your marriage. And when you get off his paper and you own your own happiness and you start speaking your desires and you stop walking on eggshells and you stop putting masks on in your marriage, Jesus can heal it because your wall comes down. But here we're over here, we're like, oh yeah, I believe in Jesus. I believe I'm a woman of faith. But we got our wall up. Yeah, I want to be married. I want to be with a man. I want to grow a family together. But we got our masks on and our walls up. Let Jesus take the wheel, guys. Let him take it. Do your own work. Make your list of things that make you ridiculously happy. In the Elevated Mother, we call this the delights list. Delight, that's such a lovely word, right? I'm like, what delights me? This sweatshirt that Sheree gave me, I'm wearing it. My meaningful necklace with scriptures, my candles that I have lit over there. I should show you. I have we call it the dead lady quilt on my bed. It's this handmade puff quilt from the 80s that I bought from an estate sale from a dead lady. And my kids think it's hilarious. My husband's like, why is that on our bed? Why? It's like weird. I'm going to show you. Look, see that quilt? Why do I have that on my bed? Because I love it. I don't know. I love it. I totally love it. It makes me happy. I sleep with that every night. I love it. You can come back to loving yourself. And oh, see, Heather, the real Heather, everyone, wave, the real Heather. She changed her name to the real Heather. I love you so much, Heather. She's hugging her fluffy pillow. She's doing this work, right? It is not hard or expensive to start doing things that delight you. It is not, it's free, guys. It is free to start speaking your desires to your husband. That costs nothing but vulnerability. Okay. It costs nothing. So make your list. What do you love? I love pink nail polish. Great. Go to the dollar store. Buy 10 things of pink nail polish. I love sending my daughter stupid holiday packages. I love it. It's impractical, but I do it anyway because I love it and it makes me so happy. And guess what happens when your husband comes home and you're happy? He's like, I am the man. I am so great. And you're like, yeah, well, I took a bath and I made cookies and I painted my nails. He doesn't need to know all that. He just thinks he's the man. And then when he comes home and you're happier, okay, you don't have to be happy all the time. It's fine. But when you are we talk about self-care. This is non-negotiable. And I'm talking about ridiculous self-care, like self-care that makes you happy, like picking daffodils every day and putting them on your kitchen counter. Why? Because you love daffodils. Because it makes you happy. God wanted you to be happy. Life is supposed to be happy, guys. It's supposed to be happy. And when we can do that more for ourselves, that's our feminine energy. We're feeding our feminine energy. And then her husband comes home and he's like, oh yeah, my wife's happy. Now what else can I give you? Right? Because now he feels he's like in his masculine energy. He's like, what else can I give you? And you're like, well, actually, I really don't want to make dinner tonight. Not feeling it. Can you go get pizza? And he's like, oh yeah, I will go get the pizza. And then this is what you do. This is how you polish this off. And the last skill is reclaiming your balance of feminine and masculine energy. So how do you hold that? Okay, you lean into your delights lifts, you let your masks down, and then you feed the energies. You feed your feminine energy, you wear what makes you feel good, right? You take care of your body, you get ready, you put on red lipstick if that does it for you, right? Like, you let people take care of you. You ask for things. And then when your husband shows up and that hero gene comes on, and like, who was it that was saying that there's so many things he doesn't do? Well, the one time he puts his bowl in the sink, guess what you get to do? You'd be like, oh my gosh, you get to act like he just slayed the dragon. All right. Be like, oh, thank you for putting your bowl in the sink. That's so helpful. And guess who's going to start putting his bowl in the sink? Your husband. And I can also show you my husband's mess in my bedroom. And you know what? This is the last quote, mic drop quote I am going to teach you. So get ready for it. When your husband is not necessarily doing the things yet, because when you lean into your feminine energy and you ask for things, this will shift when you actually say, hey, it would be really helpful if you could help put the dishes away. And then you have no expectation, like you're not naggy about it, right? You're communicating, you're asking for things, but you're not controlling about it, right? That's the ticket. But then when they do stuff or they don't do stuff, this is the question you're going to sit with. Is it worth the intimacy in my marriage to nag him about the bowl? What do you want, guys? Do you want to be the feminine energy? Do you want your husband to feel successful? Because the more you focus on the things he does well, the more you lean into that with gratitude. Thank your husband for 3 things a day. Try it. Maybe one of those things is going to work. Like he just got up and he left. Great. And he came home. Hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for going to work. Thanks for taking a shower so you don't smell bad when you come to bed. Like whatever, like find 3 things. And the more you lean into gratitude and the more you choose to see what he's doing well. And then when you ask in love, right, you share your desire. Hey, it would be really helpful if you did X, Y, Z. Like we have a running joke because our bedroom's really messy. And my husband's like, hey, babe, I'm going to clean the bedroom this weekend. And I just laugh my head off because it never happens. Because we're busy and we have 6 kids and our life's insane. And he shows up for me 999 other ways. And I realized it is not worth the intimacy in my marriage to be mad about. I just have my dead lady quilt on my bed and my cute pillows and I deal with my stuff. And I just let his stuff be. And you know what? It's magical. I don't have to care. I can let it go. It's fine. I don't have to worry about his whiskers on the sink because I was like, hey, I would really like my own vanity space in our closet. And he built that for me. And so now I just let him keep his crap all over the counter and I don't even care. It's so amazing. Right? Because it's not worth the intimacy in my marriage to be mad about. So what do you want? Do you want an intimate, flowing, loving, affectionate, easy marriage? Or do you want to fight about the bowl or the way he takes the trash out or doesn't? What do you want? Do you want to be in the feminine energy? Do you want to let him be in the masculine energy? Yes, you do. And I'm going to tell you do because you want to feel desired, adored, taken care of, safe, and connected. I think you do. So I have literally thrown a fire hose to the mace of information at you today. We're going to do, Cherie is going to walk us through a visualization. And as you do this visualization, I want you to really think about the things that came up for you today. And I want you to let it burn to the ground and really use this visualization as a renewal, like Robyn talked about yesterday. Okay? All right. Thank you for being here. Please get in our Facebook group and share. Please know that as an Elevated Mother team, like we are here for you. And this matters. It matters to God. It matters to us. And we know it matters to you. And that's why we're here today. Robyn and I were both super sick this week. And we're like, not today, Satan. You're not taking this. It matters. And by miracle, it all worked out. So here we are. So thank you for letting me share with you today. And I would love to see all the things. If you have a win, please share them in the group. If you use duct tape, share it in the group. If you have an aha moment, share it in the group, and please reach out to us and let's talk about your experience here today. So I am going to turn the mic over to the amazing Cherie for you to really sit with this energy, guys, and make these shifts. And then after her, we'll do the Q&A. So you can bring your fiery questions and we'll answer them.
Okay, thank you, Missy. I love what I do, and I love working with these women, and I love being in the energy of their space. Like, can you just see what a dynamic team we all are together? We all have our strengths, and I love it so much. So I get to work in this incredible space, and I just feel so blessed and so grateful. So I just want to start. I'm going to play one of my sound bowls just before I get started. So today I'm going to invite you to imagine with me that your marriage is like a garden. Take some deep breaths. Close your eyes. As spring approaches, we're going to work through and clean up this overgrown garden. We will be bringing forth a beautiful sacred garden that you want to spend time tending to. Close your eyes. Take some deep breaths. As we begin to walk down a pathway towards a garden that you recognize, you see that this garden represents your side of your marriage. You look it over and you see some broken limbs from a beautiful tree. You see the overgrown weeds taking over the plants and the flowers. You see the shriveled up plants from the past. You begin to understand that you have some deeply rooted weeds that represent a particular event or even several events that maybe you never properly dealt with. You see these weeds as the uncomfortable emotions that you have been avoiding over the years. What are some of the emotions that are surfacing for you right now? Resentment, anger, bitterness, frustration, betrayal, disappointment, fear, jealousy, belittlement, grief, unlovable, unloved, lonely. Do you have guilt or shame? Are you embarrassed of something that you've done or that your spouse has done? Do you feel abandoned or hopelessness? Take some time. What are the emotions that are surfacing for you? Are you ready to leave them in the past? Are you ready to put in the work to dig them up and to remove them from your garden? Are you ready to make peace with them and to move forward? What is coming to your mind as you work on cleaning up this garden of your marriage? Do you see the things in your garden as experiences to gain new awareness and perspectives in your life? As Missy stated earlier, these difficult times will help you to expand and to grow if you choose it, if you allow it. Take some additional deep breaths as you work through the emotions that are rising, that are surfacing, feeling them rise just like the weeds, and you see them being removed one by one. You invite the Savior to assist you in some of those bigger jobs with some of those really deep emotions. Jesus has already felt those emotions. He has already experienced them for you. He is willing to work with you to clean and to clear the debris that is there within your garden. Take some additional deep breaths as you work through the weeds, getting the soil turned over to begin the next phase of your journey. Taking some time to really process through and to feel those emotions, watching those weeds be removed. Soon you stand back and you admire your diligence, your hard work, the clarity that you've received as you work with the Savior in this now clean place, ready to add the beauty in. Take some additional deep breaths as we begin. Opening your heart. I invite you all now to sit in the feeling of faith that the marriage that you want already exists. You can see the end result as your reality. What does this look like to be the woman, the wife, the mother who shows up as her best self? Can you see the beautiful sacred garden in full bloom? Can you see the tree providing shade and fruit? Can you see the variety of the flowers? Do you see the Savior standing there watching over and encouraging you as you plant those seeds? The seeds of what you desire. You plant a bush of acceptance for yourself and your husband. You see the love bloom like roses on the rose bush along the fence. You feel complete and whole as you enrich the companionship with your husband. You feel this new sense of companionship. You see the connection between you begin to grow. What you focus on will grow. What you focus on will grow. You are the key to unlocking this garden. You have the ability within you to nurture and to feed the marriage that you want. You are able to plant anything that you desire within your garden. You are the keeper. The grass is greener where you water it. Can you see the green grass growing beautifully as you step into your desires and see your marriage grow to its fullest capacity? God has placed you, his strong, beautiful, light-filled daughter, into this place at this very moment to receive all that you desire. Ask and ye shall receive. Knock and it shall be open to you. Take another deep breath. Feel God's love for you. Feel of God's love for the desires of your heart. Feel of God's love for your husband. feel of God's love for your marriage and for your family. What is God teaching you in this moment? Only you know. What is He trying to teach you? I invite you to go deep within and receive the answers that are waiting there for you. When you are ready, take a minute and write down what is on your heart in this very moment. Thank you. Thank you for participating with me today. Take a moment before we move on to the question and answer and truly write down what you experienced in this process. And know that your energy is shifting and that you can come back to this any time you need to continue to see your garden growing, because it is in you. You have the power to complete the beautiful sacred garden, the space that you want for your own life and within your marriage and your family.
Thank you, Cherie. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. We have a few questions for the Q&A. If you have other ones, this is a safe space, ladies. If you have specific questions about anything, put it in the chat. Send it to Heather privately if you want it to be anonymous. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Heather, do you want to share with us some of the questions that have been sent in?
Yes. The first one is a really easy one, and it's just for Missy. Can you type out in the chat or read again your list of what not to do? Cami was asking for that, just so she
Yeah,
could.
I'll post it. And I will, you mean what triggers disrespect in your husband? I will.
I think so.
Yes, I will. Cami's my sister too. Hi, Cami. She's my sister. I will put that in the chat, and I will also post it in the free group, if that's helpful. So
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then Shanna had the thought that you had mentioned we would talk a little bit more about of there's so much he wasn't taught. Did you want to touch on that before we go to the other two questions?
Robyn,
What?
do you have some thoughts on how to approach the things that you want your husband to do that he wasn't taught to do?
I find this question to be very interesting. It's very helpful. And awareness is coming to you, Shannon. Anytime you're the only one that sees your reality the way that you do. Yes? Does everyone understand that? Like you and your husband can both see a child spill a cup of milk. This is the truth behind parallel realities. He sees, haha, that was so funny. Look, they tried to do this thing and they spilled their milk. He. And I might see it and be like, oh, I knew that cup was stupid. I hate that we keep using that cup. We always spill the milk. And I'm all up and like mad and like, running to get the towel. And my husband's just like me. Two people saw the exact same event, but they saw it very differently. And when we see someone do something, we're like, oh, they aren't doing that right. We're being reflected something that's our own reality. He wasn't taught, or you think your way's better. Like there's lots of different ways. And one of the other beautiful questions I ask myself a lot when maybe my spouse or kids do things that I feel like I'm annoyed by. I'm like, whose goal is it? I love that question. Whose goal is it? Whose goal is it that the toilet gets cleaned that way? Whose goal is it that the dishwasher gets put in that way? Whose goal is it that the toys aren't right there? Whose goal is it? Like, really? Whose goal is it that the socks are put that way? And a lot of times it's my goal. Like, I want the house to look a certain way, or I want the dishwasher to be loaded a certain way. This is my goal. And so either I get to take some time to make that known to people, you know, like however, but a lot of times if I chose myself into marriage, chose myself into owning a home, I chose myself to having multiple people living in there, I also choose to possibly have a time of day where I zoom around and pick up things to my liking. And it's not everybody else's responsibility. That doesn't mean I don't do all the chores in my house. My goal is also to have children that know how to do things. So we have different ways that we've trained our kids to do chores and whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm just going to share with this, ladies. It's just helped so much in my life. 2 times a day, I do. It's funny because I don't own dogs, but I learned that people that own dogs do this thing called the zoomies. Anyway, apparently I'm a dog, but twice a day, I zoom around my house for just like 8 to 10 minutes, and I just pick up stuff. I just go get the other dishes, or I go pick up that coat that never gets hung up and it's right next to the coat rack. Anyone have, shoes that are right next to the shoe bin? And I just pick them up. I used to be mad about it and I would wait till the kids get home and be like, look what and now I'm like, takes me 8 minutes, and I just zoom around. And when the kids were really little, we did the zoomies together. It's so funny now that I know it's a dog thing. But anyway, when it's like he wasn't taught, look within and say, what is it within me that says that's the right answer? That he should have been taught different? What really is it within me that's saying that? And that can really uncover some of the maybe subconscious judgments, personal beliefs, whatever. And a lot of times we discover that, it's my goal that something is this way. Can I just take care of it or make it known? And that can be a conversation that you can have. She put hearts in the chat, so I'm guessing that was good.
Can I add one thing,
It was
Robyn?
wonderful.
Please.
Oh, perfect. Along with that, like taking responsibility for what you want, right? So maybe it's the dishes in your house and you're like finding you're always resentful about the dishes. Funny enough, last time I taught the resentment class, right? I had an opportunity to be super resentful at my teenager the morning before because my kid missed the bus. And we live in the country. So if like one kid misses the bus, it's like you're driving a kid 35 minutes to school and it disrupts everyone else and it's a big deal. So my teenager missed the bus and I was like mad. I was so frustrated. But when I came back to it, I had to say, I have a choice here. I have a choice here. One, I have a choice how I treat my son. 2, the night before, did I hold my own boundaries and make him go to bed? No, I was doing something else. So really, am I mad at myself because I didn't do what I usually do? You know what I mean? So like you have to ask yourself, in every opportunity, you have agency. So what's your part? Are you not communicating what you need or what you want? And if your kids aren't doing chores, you get to choose. You either get to choose to do it yourself and drop your resentment, or you get to create a family chore system, right? So like if you want your husband to do something, you have a choice. You can do it yourself. You can nag him, which I don't recommend, or you can have a heartfelt discussion of why it matters to you and ask, I would love some help with this. One thing that really helps with the man brain when you want them to do something differently, whether that's the finances or the dishes or whatever, is saying, I would really love for the dishes to get done every day or whatever. Or I would really love for the finances to get done this way. What do you think? What do you think we should do? Men are great problem solvers. And you'll find that if they come up with the solution themselves, they do it. Right? So those are things that I have also found helpful approaches when I'm like, well, they should know how to do that. You know what I mean? Or they should help me, right? I own my own agency. I ask myself what my choices are. And then I say, well, what do I want? I want some help so I can ask for it, right? And then you can also release your expectations, which really helps, right? So like let them come up with the ideas and then like choose to release how that transition's going to go. Because anytime you change a system in your family, it ain't going to go perfectly. So be gentle there. All right. Let's see.
I think Heather had another question
Do
first,
we have any more questions?
Yeah, I have two more questions.
and we have
Or
Megan.
I'm not sure if they're combined. I think they're separate. They're similar, but all right. The first one is, I believe I get judged when I express my desires or delights because it's not practical or costs money or isn't essential. How do I respond?
Thoughts, Robyn?
My first thought on that, my initial thought is the belief there, like that the judgment is happening. That's some work I would really love to see this person do. Like, how do you know the judgment is happening? Are you sure the judgment, you know what I mean? Because sometimes we think we're being judged because we actually would judge ourselves on some of those behaviors. Or we've been told, you know, well, that's just not good. And it can lead back to a worthiness issue. Am I just not worthy of saying some of this stuff? So when I do, I automatically expect judgment. So some personal work there. What other thoughts do you have, Missy?
In my experience, anytime you are feeling judged, it's productive to take a look at why you're judging yourself and what story is there. So just like oftentimes we're like, well, my husband never helps. My husband, right? It's a story we tell ourselves. So really sitting with this story that you're telling yourself, even if your husband actually has a comment about it, like, well, that's silly, right? Well, that's his belief. Like my husband thinks painting my toes is dumb. Like he's not going to paint his toes. You know what I mean? So the problem is we're picking up his belief and we're taking it in and we're taking it personally, right? So really checking yourself and saying, am I judging? Am I allowing his belief about that to judge myself by, right? Because he gets to have his own feelings about painting toes or what go whatever it is, right? And so that I have found that helpful, that in any situation where like, oh, I'm being judged here, I get to be like, is that true? Are they really and like check my story, right? And then choose to pick it up or not, right? Like I mean, this is another one I talk about all the time in the program, but it's like the emotional Pac-Man, right? Like you can choose to eat that judgment or not. And when you're in integrity with yourself and you truly are like, this delights me, I know that in my soul, we have to get out of this addiction we have to our husband's approval. It's not your husband's job to tell you what you do and you don't like. You get to have that. I mean, do you like going to Home Depot and looking at tools? Because I don't. You know what I mean? So that's helpful to me. And the judgment piece is hard. I think a lot of us are addicted to external validation. And so we feel judged a lot. We feel judged a lot. But the more identity work you do and really like choosing for yourself what you want and believe, that will get easier of like choosing to not gobble up the judgment. Hopefully that was helpful. Cherie, do you have anything?
Yeah, I just have one more
Yeah.
thing.
I
Just
have one too, so go for it.
Oh, just one thing that has been helpful for me, like early on when I really struggled with like that concept of like, well, my husband doesn't appreciate that I go, spend $50 on a pedicure, but I love that, right? And so, one of the things that we did was just set aside, each of us get an allotment of money, whatever that looks like for you and your budget. And there's it's called a no questions asked. Like you get it, you get to save it for something you want or whatever. And that served us really well in the beginning. We don't need that as much now because there's less judgment. There's, a little bit better flow there. But that was really helpful for us when we were first starting out. And for me, it was really helpful because I felt like I had a little allotment of money that in every single paycheck that I was gifted that I got to go do what I wanted with instead of feeling like, oh, so that might be helpful for someone in this situation. That was just a thought that I had.
Yeah, two thoughts. That was definitely one of mine. We don't know what your financial situation is or any of the specifics, but you are worthy of having an allotment and a line for yourself on your budget. And another thought that I had was, does he know that he's worthy of having an allotment on the budget too? Because I know a lot of the times for me, my husband doesn't do anything he wants, really. Like, he just doesn't even think about that because he's so, like, we lived in that place of not having money for so long that it's like the only thing he wants to do for himself is play Xbox. I'm like, you can go and do stuff with your friends, or you can, like, and so even just, does he believe, like, where is he at on that? Like, is he judging you because he doesn't get to spend money on himself, so has that resentment there, or any of those things? Like, just thoughts that you can think about, because it is like sometimes we reflect those things and maybe you feel judged because he's judging himself, or different things like that as well. So just seeing where you're at on both sides of the picture, and why you might feel judged there. But anyway, the last question that I have before Megan's comment in the chat is, how do I deal with criticism and the doubt that is placed in my mind that my desires aren't worthy if my husband doesn't respond in the way that was suggested?
What are your thoughts, Missy?
Okay. So, like I said, before, remember that marriage is kind of like a dance. So as we're practicing these new skills and you're having new awarenesses, like, give yourself some grace, right? And your husband some grace too, because it takes time for things to shift. So the first thing I'm going to say is practice your self-awareness. Okay. So really, like we were talking about the judgment, like checking your stories, checking how you're asking, like, how are you showing up when you're asking for something? Are you complaining? Like, I need to do this, or I need to, because sometimes, like, when we're asking in a way that triggers disrespect in our husbands. Does that make sense? So really taking so much self-ownership and coming back to your integrity. I am worthy of asking for my needs. I am worthy for having a life of joy, like all these things, but really being aware of how that comes out. Okay. So, and then with the criticism, a skill that I love is you get to set boundaries in your marriage, right? Like, that's fine. Okay. That's necessary. So if your husband becomes critical, how are you going to show up? Are you going to criticize back? Are you going to add fuel to the fire? A skill that I find really helpful is what I like to call the ouch, right? Just say, ouch. And let figuring that out be on your husband's paper, and let him come to his self-awareness about his behavior. You don't have to apologize for wanting and needing things and letting your mask down, but that dance, that shift is vulnerable. I'm not going to say it's not. It is messy sometimes. I'm not going to say it's not, but it's worth it, right? So allowing your husband to sit in his self-awareness and not engaging in that, right? Not making it a fight. It takes two people to be at war, right? Who's going to end it, you or him? Sitting in your integrity and saying, when your husband criticizes you, own your side of the street, own your paper. What's on your paper that you can look at? And then set a boundary by saying ouch and removing yourself from the situation. That's worked really well for me. Not always easy to practice, right? Because like I said, it's really easy to like be like the claws come out real fast. So it takes practice. It takes practice. And that self-integrity, that self-worth piece, really getting deep and doing the work on your self-worth is so important to deal with criticism, right? Because what words come out of his mouth towards you is his problem and his choice, right? But you don't have to feed into it and you don't have to pick it up either. So, like I said, skills that are not easy to put into practice and take time. Robyn, thoughts? Cherie?
I
Heather?
think that in the Elevated Mother experience, when you guys first come in, the first thing we do is very much a lot of this, right, ladies? Like we look at, you say, what is going on? What is already in my awareness? We take a good time and we're like, we call it contrast. The things that are contrasting with what you really want. And you get to start becoming very aware. Very aware. A lot of times we are so involved in life for a long time. We've taken judgments, we've taken beliefs, we're kind of surviving. And we can go in and out of survival mode depending on how much growth you're deciding to take in. But it's beautiful to take a moment and start getting aware and saying, what is in contrast right now in my life to what I would really love? And write down, we call them writing your contrast statements. And we have a nice workbook that keeps it all there so we can see your progress and you can see your progress. One of the things that I see a lot of women do is they'll take a class like this, or they take our program, or they, and then they like don't look at it again. Write it down. Look at it again. Do it again. Read the questions again. Those things you wrote yesterday, like, what do I think about what I think about? What do I think God thinks about me and my marriage? What, and the questions today, just, have I understood this? Is this new to me? What is my level of self-grace? Have I explored that? Have I experienced it? Do I understand it? But looking at your contrasts and really being aware and saying, what's beautiful, and I'm just going to give you the next step. Once we know our contrast in the moment, a lot of times once we uncover one layer, we can uncover another. We say, why is that in contrast? And this will help you get to yourself. Why is that in contrast? And it's because there's an underlying value. So if someone says one of their contrast statements is, my husband criticizes me, what's the value underneath that? And this is the part that Missy beautifully talked about today, that I was talking about yesterday, coming back to yourself, because the underlying value of not loving your husband criticizing you is because you want a loving marriage. And so this is in contrast. What you really want is that loving and adoration. So ladies, if you're struggling with, well, I don't even know what I want, I don't know what's on my delights list, you may look at actually what's in contrast. Say, this is what I'm not loving about my relationship or my life. And then flip them around and say, but why don't I love that? What's the contrast? And you'll start to find your delights list. You'll start to find what you want. Getting real honest. I wrote that in the chat. Like, getting real honest with your desires was a struggle for me in the beginning. I wrote easy things like, well, I like paddleboarding and I like this thing. And I actually was like, I actually really like when my husband rubs my body, like a back rub, I really like that. And then I got even more things about intimacy that I had to start like I really like wearing lingerie, like little things that just were almost uncomfortable for me at the time, but I wrote them down anyway. And I got real honest about certain things that once I sat in it, when I sat in it long enough, the delights list started to come. I'm like, you know what? I really like that. And I like that. And I like that. And I showed it to my husband and he's like, I had no idea about this. I had no idea about this. Really? And so he's like, well, that's silly, And I just was able, because I've done this work for years now, ladies, but I was able to just sit and observe his responses. But man, he took it to heart. And I've had more chocolate this last little while than I've ever had in my life. When I was like, I love knowing my husband thought about me when he goes somewhere and brings me home a treat. And now he does. Like every time he brings me something. And he's like, and he even gave that advice to someone else that I was listening to, ladies. He's like, you know what's really great for your wives is when you go somewhere, if you bring them home a treat, they think you thought about them, even if you never did. And I was like, hands down, and it's the best. And so that's his one word of wisdom he gives to all his guy friends now, is to just bring something home for your wife, even if you never thought about them. He's like, and I go on a trip, I just try and grab something from the airport gift shop. Like, it's great. Isn't this great? Because guess what? He's the man. It works, these principles. And the book, The Empowered Wife, I think is really wonderful. But the piece that I think it's missing is the Elevated Mother framework, because she always points to come back to yourself, come back to yourself. And that's the work we can get in the program, is how to come back to ourselves and elevate ourselves as a mother that's got all these things going around. Like, really. Yeah, totally, Megan. All right, let's go back to Megan's question about the house projects.
She said that we can answer it later. She has some journaling she wants to do on it, but if you wanted
Okay.
to read it, we still could.
Well, house projects are actually something that are a struggle, that used to be a struggle for us as well. But if she wants to do some journaling and that's what's coming through for her, I'm going to let her do it. I'm going to let her do it. So ladies, did we have any other questions, Heather? As we close out this second day, can we all just agree the energy here has been fabulous? The energy here has been fabulous. And one of the things I've learned from being in programs and from coaching my own program is the power of collective energy. When a collective group of people with one intent comes together, there's just an energy that flows. And in the Bible and through the scriptures, we see evidence of God asking people to maybe pray and fast together. Same principle. Everybody's like coming forward with one intent, leaving the things of the world behind. For 2 hours today, the whole world has been moving on, and we've been here focused on this. There's a great, great power in that. And I believe, and Missy believes, and Sheree believes, and Heather believes, I know that there's a great power in women coming together and sharing in collective energy and getting vulnerable. And as you've sat in your vision, you've thought, what is the next step for me? What is something that I am ready to do? If you're like, I'm really curious about that, reach out to your elevation specialist. Let them know, like, I would love to learn more about this program. Our program is 6 months. I've had coaches tell me, oh, you should do it shorter. But I just feel like 6 months is barely sometimes enough time for a real transformation of self. And so while you'll have the majority of the awareness in the first 6 to 8 weeks, we really love to take you through the next 4 months for you to practice and have a safe container to practice. Where stuff happens, you're like, all right, ladies, I did this and this and this. I'm practicing this. This happened. Coach me through. And you'll have all these other moms that will be like, oh, I was there. This is what I did. Here's some suggestions. If anything, here's my prayers and support. It's very powerful. It is very powerful. We offer a workbook. We have books that we send you from Amazon that will help you to start on this path of your self-awareness, coming to yourself. loving, understanding your worthiness, learning how to set goals to achieve your deepest desires and actually achieve them alongside motherhood. The way we have you break things down, the way we have you come about your goals is with the Spirit, is with Jesus. This isn't just open the workbook and write down a nice thing and map out a goal. This is very much an immersive experience. I believe, and the ladies I'm sure can testify, and anyone here that's a client, it's like, I believe we've built a Zion community. This is a place where everyone gives, everyone takes. There's no judgment. I don't think I can be shocked by anything anybody says. There's no judgment. There's nothing. And if you're like, you know what, this feels like a space I would love to be in, we would love to invite you into the Elevate Mother experience. We would. This 2-day event was, we prayed this morning. We just want to add so much value. We want you ladies to know that we care about you. We care about your marriage. We care about how you're experiencing life. We all believe that God designed this life for joy and happiness and fun and delight. And if that just isn't your experience, we would love to offer you the opportunity to come in and experience this in the Elevate Mother Experience program. Any other thoughts from the team before we close out? They're like, no.
I'll share. I mean, I came into this space myself. I shared that earlier, very frustrated and stuck with the small army of humans and the life that I built. And I'd read every book under the sun, really, on how to grow myself. And what I feel is so special about this program is exactly what Robyn talked about. Like there's nothing like it out there. I say that, and that's why I'm coaching inside of it, because I'm never leaving. I'm like, Robyn, I'm never leaving. You might as well just let me work for you. Because when women come together in vulnerability and really can lay their hearts on the table and be held in that space, that's when God can do miracles, because we're willing. And that's the work we're doing. And I didn't really realize, I just felt led. I got dropped here by God. I was like, I don't know why I'm here. I'm just press and play, right? So when I jumped into this, I didn't realize how transformative it would be for me to be held in my struggle. And like, you know, the ladies in the program can attest, I've gone through some pretty fiery experiences in my year of this program, probably the hardest year of my life and my marriage. And to be held in that space and in myself and in my faith and supported on a level that exists nowhere else was so transformative for me, that now I get to offer that and help alongside Robyn and Sheree and Heather. And it's been such a gift and a blessing in my life. But I think that's God's intention for women, to really hold each other's hearts and for us to really walk through the flames together and let ourselves change and evolve and pick up that life of joy. And that's really what we're doing here, is we give you the container, and my shirt says, one changed mom changes generations. And so much of us, we come into this program with baggage from our family and baggage and hurt and fear, and we get to let that go. And it's scary to do this work sometimes because we feel vulnerable and exposed. And that's why the group is so special, because you're like, oh, I'm naked. Like, I'm dropping all my baggage. It's hard and I feel uncomfortable. And then we just get to hold you there. And what happens is once you know, you can't unknow, right? You go through the process of the program and it teaches you how to live life in awareness. So you do it once, you take it forever. It's irreplaceable. And I can say that with confidence because I've done it myself. And I've done it I've done the program times and times over again now. I've worked through 4 workbooks now myself. And whenever the contrast shows up for me, right? When I fight with my husband last night, I'm like, of course that's showing up. And I know what to do. And I don't go down the fighting rabbit hole anymore. And I know that I am an elevated mother. The way I live my life is up here, and there's no going back. So, like, give yourself the gift of shifting for a lifetime. And how will that change your marriage? And when you change your marriage, how will that change your children? How will that change your children's children? It really does have a generational effect. So, if you're ready to shift, like, please reach out to us and let us help you live an elevated life. Because there's no going back.
So blessed to have you all here. If you guys want to share these 2 days with friends, you can. If you want to go back and watch the replays, there's been a lot of live events that I've watched, but throughout I had different emotional, moments, and I wrote notes, and then I kind of missed the next 4 minutes, and go back and watch them. And I promise you'll take even more. And I was thinking about this morning. This 2-day thing is literally like a taste, because when you're in the program, we're on live 2 or 3 times a week. Not that you have to come to them all, but the opportunity to feel this could be regular for you. Yes, there's a cost. Yes, there's an investment. This is how we run the world, right? You get to choose you. When people come into our program, they make that investment. That's their first step towards transformation, is when they choose them, exchange that energy for them. It's a big deal. All my team has done it. It's just the way it is. And it is beautiful when a mom makes that shift. So we're going to leave you there with that, and we will sign off for the weekend. Think about these things. Come into the Elevated Mother Collective and report on what happens when you guys start using these skills. We'll be so excited to cheer you on. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.